Welcome everybody to Make More Marbles, and today we have a very special training. This is for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and teams to learn how to use AI to multiply what they're already doing, to increase their revenue, to increase their profits, and to do it in less time. So whether you're an entrepreneur and the founder and visionary of your own business, or whether you are a small business owner and you have no aspirations necessarily of becoming the next Elon Musk in your industry, but you definitely want to make more money in less time. Or if you are a corporate nine to fiver and you have a job, maybe VP level or higher, you pick your head up, look around, you say, hey, I want to make this organization better and maybe train our team on these new tools. You are in the right place. We're going to be teaching you strategies that are going to allow you to unlock productivity gains that you could never have imagined. A couple quick examples. So, quick example number one is we did a sales funnel for my latest book. And it was about 4 years ago. We made called the 8 Minute Mastermind. We did this all the old-fashioned way. Took 50 hours, a team, five figures, a ton of copywriting and page designing, iterating. And at the end of that, we managed to sell about 12,000 of these books and earn about 2.2 million in back-end sales through our program, Build a Mastermind. And that's a great result. But we wanted to revamp it. We wanted to make the book better because we've learned a lot in the last 5, 6 years, serving hundreds of entrepreneurs and thousands indirectly through our events and whatnot. So we basically took that same book funnel, like, start with 80% figured out. So it was the book and the upsell and the downsell and the this and that and all the logic and everything. And I was able to take all that on a weekend and block out 3, 4 hours and do 8,000 words of copy with image prompts, with Gamma, design mockups. And don't worry if you don't know what that is yet, we're going to teach you. And we were able to hand off a completely designed and all the copy finished package to our designers to actually implement within about 3 to 4 hours. So it went from 50 hours and a huge expense down to that. So I'm very proud of that result. And here's the distinction about AI that people don't get. It's like I was really sure that it wasn't for me for a very long time. I was looking at some of the tools that were coming out and I was like, it's kind of hokey and it's not quite there yet. And I would test it, kind of infrequently. And then I had a mentor show me some of what it could do, especially with prompting, which I'm going to show you today. Some just basic things that it could do that saved me a ton of time. But here's the distinction that most people don't get. Garbage in equals garbage out. So if you have a North Star and discernment and experience as far as what great is, and you have an example to work from, you can recreate greatness. It's a lot harder if you don't have that to start with, or you don't know what great looks like. It's going to be a lot harder for you to get there. So what these trainings are designed to do is to give you a basic introduction to what I call the tool that rules them all, right? That's ChatGPT. You're probably familiar with it. If you don't have it, it's the best 20 bucks you'll ever spend. Imagine having, an assistant that learns from you, that grows with you, that never stops working, that never gets upset, and it's only 20 bucks a month. I mean, wouldn't you pay, 20 times that to have the best assistant you ever had in your life? But it's not just an assistant, it's a therapist, it's a friend, it's a co-conspirator, and much, much more. So absolutely grab ChatGPT Plus if you haven't already, and let's dive right into it. Before I do that, I would like to introduce my co-conspirators, my friends, my colleagues, the delightful JJ Steelman and Evan Larkin and Philip Petrick. And we're all here to learn together. We have all different levels of AI knowledge. JJ's been looking at this stuff for 30 years, maybe 25 years. He helped build Salesforce and all these different companies, as well as his own $600 million exit. So he's probably the most seasoned out of all of us. I would say I'm probably second, I've been doing these tools for a few years and I'm starting to really get dangerous and building tools and workflows, and we'll get into all that. And I would say Evan is, and Philip to some extent have only been using it as long as they've been working with us, and maybe Evan a little bit longer. So they're more on the beginner side. So they're going to be asking more of the beginner questions. JJ's kind of the old hat stuff. He really understands the architecture and the coding and all that great stuff. And then I'm going to kind of be the middleman. I'm going to make sure that everybody is communicating in a way that's useful and valuable for you. So first off, just say hello, gentlemen, and we'll jump right in.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
And Evan.
Hey there.
Awesome. Well, don't be shy, gang. I'll be the host today and I'll guide you along. But I think it's really important to get to know the team too, because we do this stuff all day long. We teach entrepreneurs and SMBs how to increase their profits, how to do it in less time, and ultimately increase their exit value. And if they want to be a visionary and dominate their industry like Elon Musk or Amazon or be the next whatever, we can maybe help them do that too. So first and foremost, the first thing that people don't know about ChatGPT is essentially the settings, right? So let's just take 2 seconds and jump into that and just kind of show you what's possible. So we have a Plus account. You don't need to upgrade past that. That's $20 a month. The $200 a month one, if you're like a scientist or hardcore researcher or need like tremendous amounts of compute for math problems, that's one thing. But generally, most people don't need that. You could tell it, you can customize. You could say, what should it call you? What do you do? What traits should this GPT have? And you can tell it a lot. Like for example, I tell it not to go off on tangents or hallucinates. I tell it I don't expect it to always have an answer, so don't bullshit me, right? A percentage of how true or how false do you think this is really helpful. So literally on every one of my answers, it's going to tell me I'm 70% sure, 80% sure, 90% sure, 5% sure, so on and so forth. Conflicting data, reputable, all that good stuff. So that just helps me with sense making. There's a lot of noise out there, right? There's just not a lot of signal. So if you're going to be Googling around, you can kind of get a sense of where things are at. But now with AI content everywhere, it's going to get a lot harder. So you need this tool as a trusted agent that helps you to parse and recommend things for you. And then for data, I have a couple different preferences. If I'm using Apple Notes or Google or something along those lines, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. And then finally, I just ask you can just leave off the commentary, right? Because it's always asking me follow-up questions and, hey, should I do this or do that? I don't really think that's very valuable for me because I'm pretty good at coming up with a million rabbit holes for my ADD brain to go down. So I just tell them to leave that off. And then you can just kind of personalize a little bit more, anything else that you should know. And there's some advanced settings here. So I turn them all on by default because why not? And enable that for new chat. So that's one thing. The other settings are here. So theme, language, all that great stuff. That's pretty straightforward. Notifications. One thing I definitely want to draw your attention to here is this idea of memory. So when you're first using ChatGPT, occasionally you're going to see it say something like updating memory. And that's totally fine. That's normal. What that's doing is training your little private database that you're creating here. And you can choose whether to reference that or not. You could choose whether to use save memories and chat history. I've turned both those on because just it makes it better at understanding all your different projects and how they fit together, because we're going to get into that in a minute. And then finally, it allows you to manage the memory. So I can go in here and I can delete things that it has made as notes for itself to remember, right? And some of these things are still relevant. I want to keep them, and some of them are not. I tend to hover in the 95 to 100%, and I'm hoping for the one day where they just let me buy more storage because I don't want to delete anything eventually. I want it to know everything that we ever talked about and be able to reference it in real time. So that's that. You can connect it to a bunch of different things. You can use Google Drive. You can add deep research. We don't have to get into that right now. Now there's data controls, so you can choose to have this on or off. And JJ, I'd love for you to kind of just speak to the personalization bit, but also the privacy bit. Is that on these settings or is that somewhere else? We were talking about that before the training here.
So they actually made it easy. You can close out of this real quick, Brad. I'm not going to take over screen since you're just here. I'll just walk you through it. And
Mhm.
over at the top next to your profile, you see the little chat icon that
Mhm.
says it's got the little squig and it's more dashes instead of it is a straight line over on the right hand side.
Oh, sorry. Right hand side. This guy. Temporary chat.
Yep.
Yep.
So this will not hold your information while you're using this option. Now, this used to be hidden in your profile, and they made it easy for everyone, so it's just a click of the button up there.
Yeah. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to do something nefarious or I'm planning an attack or something wild, I'm sure that would go straight to law enforcement. So that's why they have that little disclaimer. But generally speaking, if you just want to talk about something private that you prefer not to have trained on GPT models, which is just generally a good idea, right? If you're not sharing stuff, then why would you? I think you just need to be concerned about, hey, in the future, all of this stuff could potentially come back to bite you in various ways. And it's ways you don't think about. Like I love using ChatGPT. We'll talk about some of the different use cases as it looks through my blood work and my genetics to suggest things that I should be taking as far as supplements and so on and so forth. And it's really good at that. In fact, I just got my last blood panel back, and of 84 markers, I was slightly off on 4. And it said my biological age, I'm 40. It said my biological age was 31. So 9 years younger, like 25% younger than I should be. So that's pretty cool, right? And I take my health very seriously, and that's something I use to keep tighter. So it's either you hire some functional medicine doctor with some high ticket program for 20 grand for 6 months to work with you and get some blood tests, or you can do the blood test yourself, give it the data, and save yourself 90% of that margin, right? With using ChatGPT for a little while. So temporary chat's a good way to think about that. But I choose to share most things because ultimately it makes it tighter and better and faster, and we get better iterations each time. So you're looking at a ChatGPT account that's got thousands of hours down the rabbit hole. So there's a lot here, but in the beginning, I think that's a really important distinction. So settings.
Yep.
Just to
And
come back to this. Yep, go
I
ahead.
just want to add one thing in there as well, because you brought up a good point, Brad. For the people who are doing, holistic medicine, functional medicine, using this and training it with your brain can speed up your process.
100%. And we'll get into what it looks like to build custom GPTs as well as pickaxes, which allow you to then take that algorithm that exists in your brain or that heuristic or decision making skill that you have that you would normally use for clients and ultimately create a version of yourself or a limited version that can create that same result without you even being in the loop. And I think that's a really important thing to look at too. So you have all the things that you'd imagine. You can export your data, which I highly recommend. I have it in my calendar every month to say, hey, export the data. I stick it in my Google Drive just in case I don't want to lose all these thousands of hours of work. I can have all of whatever I've talked about forever in a text file, which is pretty great. And that can also be used to train other GPTs. So if I want to start from scratch with a new API or even a new model, let's say I go to Claude or Gemini or, you know, what's the other one? With a P, Perplexity. If I go to Perplexity, I want to have that training so I don't have to start over from scratch. So that model can technically know me as well as ChatGPT did if it can absorb and use that data, which I'm not 100% sure it can, but I'm sure it will in the future. Finally, another safety tip, just two-factor auth everything. I've been the attack vector for a lot of different hackers over the years, and I found that if you just make yourself slightly more than average hard to hack, it's just easier. So like 2FA on your phone, not on any text. I had a crazy thing where hackers bribed a T-Mobile employee to spoof my phone number, SIM card, and they were able to use that to two-factor auth into some of my emails and try to get access to some crypto and stuff like that. I'm like, never again. So I just always do it as a physical device. So you literally have to come and do something pretty nefarious to get it. You can't just hack me easily. So they're going to move on to lesser targets. So strong passwords, two-factor auth, highly important, and just make sure you back up and do everything there too. And then finally, you just have different accounts here and all the different features that come along with that. But yeah, again, the $20 a month plan is perfectly fine. And this was filmed on June 23rd, 2025, in case you're wondering. Cool. All right, so let's get into it now. So the first thing I think about is projects. So every project that I have in my brain or that I'm working on as a business, because we all work together in a business, has its own folder. So I've got different ones for different projects, different ones for different companies, different ones for masterminds that I go to. If you're not familiar with masterminds, essentially a group of business owners that get together to share results and relationships and have fun together, recreation, right? You have health and boundaries and emotional stuff. So I can talk about, all the stuff that's going on with my body or my mental state or anything like that. I can work on my blood review. We can go through all that and I can literally just have a conversation. So it starts out as here's the thing. Here's all the data, right? I just basically copied and pasted it. Hey, I got all my blood work back on this function protocol. I put it all in the thing. And then I just started going through and asking questions and making tweaks to my stack. And then I can go over to my supplements here and, just keep track of everything that I'm doing. And it's just so much easier to have a thinking partner because this would take, tens of hours, hundreds of hours, something like that. I don't know how many times I've updated this thing over the years. And every time I make an update now, or every time I go to a social event, I've got my 40 supplements with me or whatever crazy thing. And everybody asks me, oh, what are you taking? I'm like, oh, here's my spreadsheet. You could just go do that. So, all of this makes it just much easier to track. So that's an example of that. And, I always, again, I don't play a doctor on the internet. I'm not a lawyer or any kind of professionally certified person. I always run this by smarter people than me who have dedicated their lives to this thing. So for example, if I'm wanting help with my supplements, well, I'm going to do my best with GPT so I don't waste anybody's time. So I have a really good idea and I'm educated. Then I'm going to bring my stack to my friend, Dr. Balduzzi, for example. Anthony Balduzzi is a great, functional medicine doctor, naturopath, what have you. And he could just tell me if I'm doing anything stupid. So I get the second opinion and I make sure that I'm not going to do anything that would cause me to die because that would make everybody very sad, including myself. So that's an example. So that's health, boundaries, and emotional. That can kind of all go in one bucket. You can sort your buckets however you like. We have one for ongoing research, which doesn't really fit in a category. It's just stuff I'm really interested about. So like all my weird conspiracy theories, ancient aliens, getting on Joe Rogan, like anything that I'm just interested in, like how to UFOs potentially work, even if we can't recreate it. Like how would the physics actually work? My friend, I just went to her event and she's been a coach for 20 years and I really loved her style. So I took a recording of that and I transcribed it on my phone. So you have these little voice memos on Apple. If you're not using Apple, I'm sure there's something similar on Android. But essentially, I can go in here, I can make a little voice recording. And then at the end of it, if it's not too long, think it can go up to 45 minutes sometimes. You can go in there and copy the transcript, and that's just a text file that I can now take straight to GPT and begin to manipulate. So I went from having to take notes by hand, and I still do, but now I'm recording also, and I have chat transcribe and give me the notes and then the breakdown of what I just heard and any action items and any verbatim quotes and any kind of reinforcing things for learning, because just reading through that again will give you a different level of mastery and understanding than if you just live through it. And then you can share those with other participants and you look really smart. So that's another example of that. So I actually have one that's just for that. So if I go to an event and I go to Flight Club and other masterminds, I already have instructions in here that say I want key takeaways verbatim, or quotes verbatim, and action items and frameworks and your synthesis from the transcripts I provide in this thread unless I say otherwise. So unless I give it more instructions, I could just dump a transcript right in here and it's going to fire away a bunch of cool stuff. So I'd like to pause here with some basic use cases, and then we could talk about some more crazy stuff and give you guys some steps. But JJ and or Evan and or Philip, do you have anything to add or questions to help direct kind of some of this stuff? And is any of this new to you, or are we kind of treading in new territory or old territory?
No, so far you're doing really good, and nothing to add yet.
Okay, sweet. Evan, did you have any questions, or Philip?
No, so far so good.
Okay, great. And is any of this stuff new, or is this all pretty much par for the course?
Yeah, most of the things I knew already.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. And then I use this all the time for stuff like this. So I just have a brain that goes a mile a minute. Instead of bothering my wife and my friends and Google about all this stuff, I'll just go into ChatGPT and ask a question. And it's really good at doing math. I always double check the math if it's important, but generally speaking, like I can begin to figure out very quickly what something was worth, for example, in 1953. So my grandparents built a house on Long Island that I inherited in 1953. I'm curious what it would be worth back then. I could do all this math and figure it out. It does all the formulas. I start to see what other property values were like at the time, just to see like what's the real rate of inflation versus how much the property actually accrued in value. Because you hear people all the time say, "Oh, my house has gone up 3x." Well, I'm like, "Yeah, but they printed 4 times the money. So where is it exactly?" So that's like a really quick calculation I can do, compounding math that I wouldn't have to actually go get a calculator and figure out. So that's one thing like that. That ended up turning into a conversation, and these happen all the time. So I end up relabeling them about where's like a really nice beachfront house that's like similar to the Hamptons were in the 50s that I could buy right now. And it's like, "Oh, you should go to Brazil." I was like, "I don't really feel safe in Brazil." "Cool. You should go to Uruguay." I'm like, "Well, that's a 20-hour flight." Or 2.5 hours away is Puerto Vallarta, which is in Mexico, relatively safe. It's on the coast. And you can get like a really nice oceanfront 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for like 350, 400,000. And it would probably net cash flow positive. And like I was able to figure all that out in 10 minutes without Googling one thing. The only thing I ended up Googling was like some photos of the beaches and stuff just to show my wife. And she's like, "I don't like Mexico." I feel sick when I go to Mexico. It's like, okay, I get it. I've been there a lot. I'm used to it. Everybody has to pay the toll, right? The Montezuma's revenge. But that's an example. Then there's stuff that's like, hey, I like a good conspiracy theory as much as the next guy. And I listen to books by like Annie Jacobson and, listen to her really deep research. I'm never going to go down the rabbit hole on like Project Stargate and the ESP experiments that the government did for 20 years. But it's interesting to me and I think it's cool and I kind of want to know more about it. So really I'm coming at it from like, oh, is this something that's completely debunkable or not? Right? Am I going to waste a lot of time on this? I get into other stuff. I start asking about JFK and all these different bits. But I guess I'm showing you this to recognize like this is a tool you could use for almost anything, not just writing copy, not just writing social media, although we'll show you how to do this too. It's just interesting to be able to absorb the internet and make sense of it in a very short period of time, all without having to Google and click on links and find out who's on the level and make comparisons and just brain drain, brain drain, brain drain. And if it's something really important I want to verify on myself, I can still go do all that. And if I catch it in a bullshit lie, I can still call it out on that and go find the real answer. But in a post-truth world where there's more noise than signal, this is a really helpful sense-making machine because here's the distinction. The map does not equal the territory. But if you add up enough maps and lay them over the territory, eventually you begin to approximate the territory, right? So I use GPT as my first pass at things to get a sense of where I'm at and whether my logical ideas and assumptions are correct or not, so that I can then dig deeper on something. Okay, so let's go into the next use case, which I think is really helpful. So if you're a business owner, you're probably generating a lot of leads. And I'm not going to show you these on the recording, but just to give you an example, like if you went to a mastermind and let's say you were having, I'll just share a quick story of my own life. I'm an AI mentor for a mastermind called Four Rooms, and Amber's a client. She's great. She runs it, and they have about 100 people. And AI is a really popular topic right now, as you can imagine. So they offered me the role of coming in to test out being the AI mentor and to see if people, vibe with me and all that good stuff. So essentially, I came in, I did the first day, I was just a participant. On the second day, I ran four different rooms that had 15 and 20 people in them, where I was teaching about AI tools, and I showed them some cool stuff. And I had everybody go around the room and record themselves just saying, here's my name, here's my business, here's my challenge in my business right now, and here's what I'd like to learn about AI. And just those four data points, I was able to take as a transcript, just like I showed you before. I was able to pop them in here and then pump out as a spreadsheet and then follow up. I literally walked out of the business, or sorry, out of that room with $500,000 in potential business, of which I closed 100,000 in the first week. So like this is a real money making thing where in the past it'd be really difficult to follow up and get everybody's phone number and have time to talk to everybody. Now I can kind of, pick and choose who I follow up with based on whether they have a challenge or a question that I think is really indicative that I can help them, because we do help people with consulting and masterminds and AI and all that good stuff. Now I can go out of that room and decide who I follow up with when. I can follow up and get contact information. I can work through trusted intermediaries and relationships to make sure I'm not missing anybody, so that you just get more bang for your buck when you go into these rooms. So the notes side is really helpful, and I do that. And then the introduction side is really helpful, and just capturing all those potential leads and people that you want to do business with. And if you're not in business, this could be just really helpful to have, kind of an outboard brain, something to continue to grow your recall, your memory, your transparency, your notes get tighter, everything gets a lot tighter. So here's another example. I do a lot of training with a guy named Clifford Starks. So Clifford was a UFC fighter. I think he fought 3 times in the UFC and maybe like 17 times professionally. Big heart, great guy, amazing fighter. He's got 25 pounds of muscle on me and 3 inches of reach. So like he can punch me while I'm fully extended and I can't touch him. So that's a little scary. So I'm learning how to fight from him, which is a challenge in and of itself. But at the time we met each other, he couldn't afford my services, right? He was just kind of restarting his career and he wanted to be a business coach. And I think he has the chops, honestly. I think he can really apply what he's learned as a fighter to be really helpful for business owners. And he's doing that. And he wasn't making any money at the time, so I just started teaching him the basics. So he would train me for 40 minutes of an hour, and I would train him for 20 minutes of an hour. And now from, I think we started in November or so, he's making 8,500 a month, which is pretty good. It's like replacing his old income. So nearly a little over 100 grand a year from our work together so far, and he's continuing to rise up. And I've gotten to the point where I don't get punched in the face slightly so often. So that's been fun. But anyway, I take notes on every single one of our sessions and I send him these quick note takeaways. So it's like key takeaways, getting towards his goals, the different themes, getting the offer frame, the sales, whatever he's asking questions about. I'm just capturing all of this and sharing with him the frameworks and taking, the verbatim quotes out and the models and all the different things. And this is no extra work on my part, right? So I could just be talking to him, transcribe, and then send it right to him afterwards. And we do this every single week. It's super helpful. And he'll give me a couple of videos to review, and I'll come back the next week and suck slightly less at fighting. So there's another example. So guys, I'm going to take a little break here and just let's talk about some different examples of the way you use ChatGPT and what it's been useful for. And then we can really get into some of the prompts and what that looks like and everything.
I'll just piggyback off of what you just showed right there. Something that I've used similar to that. What's so cool is that you have all those notes from each one of those sessions. I've found that ChatGPT is really good at identifying trends. So you can actually then upload those notes, let's say over the course of 6 months, and it's really great at showing you, hey, here's maybe something that we brought up every single time that hasn't moved. Maybe we thought it has, but it's really good at kind of identifying, what's changed, what hasn't changed, and then, suggesting areas to focus on for the next one too. So yeah, trend analysis and suggestions for future movement I found have been really helpful with things like that.
That's super helpful. JJ, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, so a lot of things that I personally use ChatGPT for is, one, my calendar. I'm ADHD. There's a lot of things on my calendar and trying to piece those down. And me and Brad have this strategy that he taught me with using index cards to, really break down what's the important things to do every single, day. The 4 to 5 things, 3 to 4 things. And now I've taken that to the next step. So I'll tell ChatGPT what's on my calendar today, And then I'll say, okay, what are the 3 to 4 things that I really have to get done to move the needle for our company?
Mm.
And I do that the night before I go to bed, before I do my nightly meditation, get ready for bed. I do that so that way in the morning I know what I need to get done. And I'm not, I get on a lot of calls. So, it's given me good time frames too in between those calls. Okay, this hour you have to do this.
Right.
And ChatGPT has been fantastic for that. And especially if anybody's ADHD, things like that, just the simple things in your daily schedule, it really excels at. And if you go the next step further and you connect your calendar and stuff, it can do more, but that's more stuff we can talk about down the road.
Yeah, I had an aunt named Claire who passed away. It was a long, sad story, but I call it Calendar Claire for a reason. It's like you never know how much time you have, so don't waste it. So as a memoriam or a tribute to Claire, who was my mom's favorite sister and one of my favorite aunts, is really special to be able to call it that. So it's essentially like you can take your entire calendar, chunk it down, download it, ICS, whatever, Google format, send it in and be like, okay, this is how you're actually using your time. And then if you want to be more productive, here's what to focus on based on, it'll ask you some questions and things like that. So these are all examples of use cases that you can do just for personal productivity that keep you on track and more focused and just, it's the old Drucker quote, it's what gets measured, gets managed. Carl Pearson was part of this quote. It's what gets reported improves, and what gets measured and reported improves exponentially. So if you just took the step to, kind of measure what you're doing on a consistent basis and then report it to the team or somebody that you care about or somebody you don't want to disappoint, a mentor, friend, wife, husband, doesn't matter, kids, that just gives you that extra leverage to actually go get it done. So JJ and Evan and Philip and I, we talk, pretty much every weekday about these different things that we're working on. And we have our own kind of things that we're bringing to the puzzle, but we also use GPT as like an additional thinking tool to help grab things. And less so now as a visionary, do I just tell them, I actually show them with GPT. I give them a document. I do the work beforehand to bring them something that's like ready to consume and really trimmed so that they can, download that 1 to 3 pages or sometimes 15. I try not to make it 15 every time. But it just gives them a good roadmap of what is and what I'm thinking. I've already done the work and it just shows that you value your team. So that's a really helpful thing. So anything to add, Philip, or want to keep it cruising here?
Yeah, you can keep going.
Okay, cool. Philip's the quiet one, but he's very productive. So that's good. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, but how do I get started, right? So if you get GPT out of the box, it's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. You could probably just start talking to it and not have a big issue. But what's really popular right now is what's called prompt engineering. That means, what do I say to GPT to get better and more consistent outputs? And I think prompts are kind of like training wheels on a bike, right? In the beginning, when you don't know how to ride a bike, they can keep you upright so that you can learn to go forward and turn and do all the things and get comfortable on the bike. But eventually, if you want to go and like skid out and do wheelies and stuff, like the training wheels got to come off, right? When you get really good at riding a bike, you got to stop thinking about it in the old way. So I look at prompts the same way. It's like prompts will get you started. They'll help you get trained. We built a really cool library and a bot to show you what prompts to use when. There's a link to this in the chat or the trap, the training or whatever page you're on right now. So we're going to build all that for you. But just for the sake of this training, I want to make sure that you have at least some primers and reusables, and then like building a personal context engine. So essentially what I just showed you with going down thousands of rabbit holes, thousands of hours of rabbit holes with GPT, it's learning more and more about me. And now when I ask it interesting questions, it gives me really valuable insights and usually stuff that I never thought of before. And that's more at the end. But this is 92 pages of prompts of every different sort that you can imagine. The most important thing to do, though, is to kind of get started with these primers so that it begins to understand your identity. So I'm going to tell you who I am and who I help. Steer this information, use it for context every time I give you a prompt moving forward. Your name, your brand, you help, get the core results, the brief summary or method of offer, your tone of voice, how you sound, confident, warm, fun, clean, your core values are whatever it is. And then when responding, I'll always sound like me. And if you don't know any of this information, you can begin to brainstorm it with GPT. So that's one. The avatar snapshot. So if this is like your brand and who you are as a person, this will create that consistent voice and POV, especially if you're doing a lot of writing. This one is more like, who am I actually targeting? What do I know about these people, their current situation, their top frustrations, their deep desires? What have they tried in the past? How do you help them? And what does winning look like? So that's really helpful. This could be the quick fill for your offer. And any single one of these, you can literally copy paste it. I could take it over here and copy paste it into here. And then I can chat to it and say, hey, for this prompt, I'd really like you to let me know what you think all of these ideas are, because you know a lot about me. I just want to show this for a demo. So I do that. It transcribes it. It grabs the little thing. Where did it go? So I put this at the top. You just got to move the cursor if you wanted to put it there by default. So I'll put this here. Boop-a-doo, boop-a-doo-ba-doo-boo. So now it's going to take that and it's going to think for a second. And it's going to do it based on the fighter's formula because that's what's going on in this thread. But if I use it just in Optimus, I'm sure I'd get a different result. So let's just try that real quick. So if I go over to Optimus, it's going to use the context from Optimus. That's going to go based on the project files in that particular project, right? So it's going to switch contexts based on where you're at. So this particular one is Optimus operating system, business accelerator mastermind, install AI powered systems to free up 30 hours a week. None of this information is just made up. This is all stuff that I've shared with it and refined with it over time. So it knows exactly who I'm targeting, knows exactly the price point, the format, the duration, all that great stuff. This can be really valuable. So this is the ways you can train it. So you can either take it and like literally put it in there and change the results. And you can do something like dictation. So if you're on a Mac, for example, I just hit the function key twice. You can set it up in the settings and I could literally talk to it and it'll start to redo my voice and add all my things in there. And then I could just stop. Yeah. And then I could go over here and I could replace audience and I can go, it's for entrepreneurs, coaches, executives, blah, 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 blah. And it's just going to write all that. So I don't have to actually write all this stuff. And then I just hit it twice and I'm done. So I can just basically paste in the prompt, talk to it, and now I'm off to the races, right? So when I click go, I didn't spend a bunch of time clickety clacking, hunting and pecking, even though I know how to type. It's just more efficient that way. So I've basically given you the keys to the kingdom to get your GPT up and running. And it's at the link that we shared under this video, as well as maybe you got it on the way in. So the Optimus prompt library is set up to give you basically the hacks to get the training wheels on the bike so that it knows you so that you're ready to go. So then, okay, you've done all these. Maybe you build some personal story banks. It's very similar. You could talk through these ones, pop it in, do the different traps and blah, blah, blah. You could also, on your mobile phone, you can do what I like is to use the voice to text feature. So I can transcribe, if I just have like a long thing, I can transcribe up to 10 minutes of text on here. So if you see that little microphone button, not the one all the way on the right, but the one to the next of it, that little microphone button allows you to talk to text and transcribe up to 10 minutes of you yapping away. So like I've written entire book outlines in 10 minutes. I've done all kinds of cool stuff just by talking to it. Then it spins it down into text and then I can continue the conversation on chat. And then if I want to switch from my phone to the computer, I can do that. The dictation on the computer as of this writing or as of this training is actually, I think, limited to maybe 30 seconds to a minute. So you don't want to overdo it there. But if you have like a longer thing, you could do that, or you could just do dictation like I showed you. So then this prompt library goes into categories. So it kind of tells you what's in here. And then it just basically gives you all the different prompts. So this is like a Swift Army knife prompt generator. If you want to create your own prompts, here's your desired outcome, all these different bits, optional add-on, copy and paste, all that great stuff. And then I get into like actual use case prompts. So this is interesting. We created a little bot here because 92 pages is a lot. And I was like asking people to control F and they weren't going to do it. So I was just basically like, hey, I need help with my operations in my SMB, just say small business. What prompts would you recommend I try first? So we made this little companion bot that knows all the content. It's going to pull it verbatim from that Optimus prompt library. I want specific prompts from the prompt library in your database. I'm glad that it failed because occasionally it does that. It goes off the rails a little bit. There we go. So now it's going to grab all the ones that make sense from that lens, right? So if we go in here, you could see that this prompt, where did it go? Who's this here? Here we go. Live Clarity Builder is one of the ones that it actually returned. You have an offer enhancer. You have a why I built this prompt. You have a day in the life prompt. You have a quality lead filter prompt. Let's focus on prompts from the database that will help me. And you can query it as many times as you want. We pay for the gas, so that's fine. That will help you to create a better offer, help us to create a better offer. There you go. So the more specific you are, the better the prompt will be. And it's the same exact thing. You just literally copy paste this, you pop it into chat, you fill in the gaps, the blanks, and then you basically iterate that to perfection. So the way I typically work is I start with a prompt, something that I'm thinking about, and then I have a conversation with it and refine it until I'm happy. I pull all that into a Google Doc, I work on it some more, and then I send it back to GPT so it knows what I updated, because the recursive training is what makes it so powerful. A lot of people don't do that step. So make sure you do that. So really step one, start with the prompts, just make it easy, get it up to speed. Okay, now we're having a conversation. So we're kind of off the prompts, we're off the training wheels. Then we get it to where we want it. Okay, great. Let's pop it into a doc and let's refine it a little bit more, just separate from GPT, because otherwise it'll just keep recursively regurgitating stuff and it's distracting or getting you off of rabbit holes. Then I take that document, I share it back to GPT for any last refinements and for recursive learning, and then I share it with my team. So that's kind of how to use it like a pro. And then when you're thinking about a longer workflow, like the example of the funnel that we shared earlier, I had to break that down. That was 7 pages. Each page just had multiple sections. One of them had 16 sections. Each section had maybe a headline and sub-headline and different things going on. So I was able to really break it down to those individual sections and knock that out. But the key is not to give it too much at once, right? So for every page, there was broken down by sections. For each section, I broke it down to individual lines, and we basically selected the best of what we came up with, hybrid, and went on to the next one, the next one, the next one. I was recursively sharing each time. So smaller chunks, more patient, more consistent, sharing back, you get better outputs. So that's the difference between having a really excellent final product and a bunch of direct, because most, again, garbage in, garbage out. It's the first and last thing I'll always say when it comes to this. So the goal of this is not to replace you. That's not there yet, maybe one day. The goal of this is that entrepreneurs who use AI and people who use AI in their business, their workflows, or in their productivity in their job are definitely 100% going to replace entrepreneurs and other people that do not, right? It's going to make you 10 times more effective and allow you to put out really high quality. That's great and up to your standards, but you got to know how to get there. You'll fall off somewhere along the way. And either one of two things will happen. People know you're using AI and it's not going to look well, maybe to some people upon you, or they're going to see that you're doing a whole lot more and ask for your secrets, right? Hopefully it's more of the latter. And I make no, bones about it. Like I'm happy and proud to use AI. I think it's really cool. It's cutting edge. And I get to bring back the learnings and some of the success stories to you so that you can be more effective, more productive, make more money in less time and have a bigger impact in the world, because time is your most valuable resource. Once it's spent, you don't get it back. So I'd rather trade money for it. I'd rather trade other things for it that are renewable in order to get more back. And GPT is like a partner that helps speed you up 100-fold if you're good at it. So let's round this out. Any other quick qualms, queries, and questions for GPT? And maybe we'll get into some more advanced things like prompting other tools. Because now it knows you, you can use it to prompt other tools. We'll get into that in another video. But guys, do you want to bring this home?
Amazing overview so far. And I would just like to highlight on your last point there. I've used ChatGPT specifically a lot for different client work, different work for myself. And to your point, I never shy away from pretending that I do use it or don't use it. And the feedback I've always gotten when done well and the product that's being delivered is excellent, is people are actually more impressed that, oh, wow, you used GPT,
Right.
you leveraged AI for this. And I go, oh, absolutely. Here's overview how I did it. And it actually makes them lean in more and be even more excited about working together and what we could possibly do in the future. So I've had a really positive experience being transparent about using it the right way versus, pretending I don't use it, maybe have something come across the wrong way. So
Yeah, and it's just about being honest and transparent. I think that's, like you said, it's more enrolling that way. Nobody expects you to use a harder way when there's a better way. It's like
mhm.
nobody gives you extra points for walking when there's a car. You know, they just think you're an idiot. It's like you could use a pen and paper or your own blood, right? You could use a chisel and stone. You could use a typewriter. You could use a computer. You could use ChatGPT. It's like it's another iteration of what's possible. JJ, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, and I'm right there with Evan. I don't tell anybody, it's not AI. And a lot of people who know me and who've worked with me in the past know that I am an amazing speaker. I am a terrible writer. So being able to take the content from someone, upload it so they understand their brand, their voice, and everything else, and then I can speak to ChatGPT the way I want it to sound. I can just riff with it, and that's all I do is I just open the microphone and I just don't shut up until I've said what I have to say. And then I tell it, take all this information, give me this. And that's the thing that a lot of people make the mistake is they don't prompt it correctly, right? You have to give it a GPS. AI is still in its infancy. You don't have to treat it, like it's the expert. It wants to be the expert. It's a toddler. So talk to it, love it, feel it, and you're going to get the output that you want.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's like be kind to it because one day they may be our AI overlords, and I think please and thank you go a long way, you know. But yeah, and that's such a great point, JJ. Is like garbage in is garbage out. If you give it a good map, it'll follow it and it'll get better and better over time. So whenever I run into a brick wall or I get into a rabbit hole or it just goes off the rails and hallucinates, I just gently correct it. Like, hey, no, you're off track. Let's go back to what we know, right? Let's start over. And sometimes it has a bad day. You got to come back tomorrow. So don't get frustrated with it. Don't give up. Keep going until you get a great output. What I would love for you to come out of this training with is like an aha moment that you got on your own playing with it. Where you're like, holy crap, I didn't know it could do that. For me, it was when it started looking through life insurance contracts and giving me stuff that used to take me hours to do or a week to do in minutes. It was like so fast. And I was able to create all these scenarios of how a life insurance policy could lapse or fail. And like that's mind blowing. Like a life insurance agent can't even tell me that. The company that wrote the policy can't even tell me that. Like it's really powerful, guys. If you just start dreaming up use cases. So here's the promise I want you to make for you. And Philip, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. Promise me that you're going to, every time you have an urge to Google something or look something up the old fashioned way, go to the library if you're still doing that, use ChatGPT first. Just make that a habit. I'm going to use ChatGPT first. And you can still go to those other, check it, back it up, fact check, whatever it is, primary sources. But if you're not using this consistently, you're not going to be available and aware of how deep this rabbit hole goes and how much power it actually has. So that would be my first step is just get into it, use our prompts, use the guides, get it trained up, and it'll get better and better and produce better outputs over time. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about some more advanced things you could do with regard to using ChatGPT as a proxy layer for other tools. So you don't have to relearn that tool. It can just give you the prompts to then get a better output out of that tool. So you don't have to start from scratch. All right, gang. We'll see you on the next video. Cheers.